So with that, I'd like to start off with a very kind gentleman, Mr. Michael. So Mr. Michael has really given his all to be here. He's a kind spirit, well-learned man, here at great length. But I'd like him first in his group to just give us an opening of the session and an opening of the co-creation, why we're here, and then from there, I'll give it to another of our speakers.
Thank you so much for being very kind. To say I'm kind, and I gave my all to be here, because I have a lot, I'm sitting with so much, but here we are. I come from Uganda, where we, every time I say this, the Kenyans laugh a lot, but I'll say it anyway, where we don't gamble leadership. We find one solid guy, and we say, how many years do you? Like 40? You can do 40? Like, yeah. These Kenyans, you know, 5 years, then they want to chase him, then 5, then. They want to chase their leaders. Yeah, but it's interesting to be here. It's so beautiful to be here. Kigali is an interesting space, but Kampala is more interesting. We all know it's the pearl of Africa, Uganda. Yeah, so I'm here with a colleague. I saw Ruth walking in. I'm here with Ruth, and we are both from Evidence and Methods Lab, which is a civic tech organization. Really our work is making information easily accessible to people. And I'll just start with a story about how we ended up with EML. I had done a bit of work with for-profit organizations, some consulting firms as a young career man, mostly working in monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning. Worked with government, privileged to work with the Office of the Prime Minister in Uganda under a program that was funded by the DFID then, which is now UK Aid, trying to do what they call evidence-based decision-making within government, so working with different government institutions to streamline reporting. Worked with Twaweza. My colleague is here from Twaweza. Once you're in Twaweza, you're forever Twaweza. Dr. Manyasa. So I'm really privileged to be here. So so I had this goal and ambition in life to get out of employment. It's like a wild idea that you have. Just I think at 33 I should get out of employment. So in 2017 with some friends, we sat on the table and thought, we work in this data space and all that. What is the world lacking? Because we wanted to start an M&E firm, yeah, to go collect data with other organizations and get paid for that. And we thought, but so many organizations are already doing that. What is it that people are not actually doing? And then we realized that there's this big gap of trying to turn that data information into actionable things, yeah? Things that communities, policymakers can actually act on. All of us, with our backgrounds, you know, many of us do monitoring. We do have our own internal reports, donor reports. And usually those reports, we do sometimes a launch. We hire a consultant, sometimes a researcher. We collect a lot of data and write reports. And we call a meeting, a press conference. And what we do is we launch this report and hope that that information will somehow trickle down and get to the people that actually need it. So the media will pick up a few stories and angle them the way they want. And then we hope that someone will pick up that report somewhere. Yeah? That same thing happens to laws. Think about laws. Parliament sits and passes a law, and then they hope that people will actually be able to understand that law. Think about, and this really happened when we were starting out, to speaking to people about things like the national budget, for example. Think about the national budget. So when we spoke to Ugandans about the national budget, because we thought it's a very important piece of data and information that Ugandans actually need to know, because it affects their daily living. So this is what people said, that these keywords actually came up. And I'm glad that Margaret, my friend, and some people talked about acronyms and all that in the morning, that people remembered these words. GDP, GDP, and GDP. GDP per capita. Some people who are complicated and sophisticated would add that, but they remembered the briefcase that the minister walks with to usually Serena Hotel. Coincidentally, we are here at Serena. Usually at Serena Hotel, and he reads out the budget. And for the Ugandans, what we found out is that what they hear is GDP, GDP, GDP. Thank you very much. I am actually really glad that you laugh, because that is our lives. People who work in, sorry? Yeah. So that also reflects on the idea of measurement, or the idea of data that we collect, our measurement frameworks, impact reporting. A lot of the people that we deal with sometimes hear GDP per capita, GDP, GDP, GDP. They remember a bit of it, and then doesn't make any meaning to them until the following day they are arrested and say, hey, you know, during the recent budget reading, they increased tax on this. They adjusted these laws, right? People cannot relate with them. So the question is, what would measurement therefore look like for me and for all of us, if it truly belonged to the people that actually it's meant to serve? Beyond the tools, and I think that's for me the gist of this question. This session, as I was thinking about it, we build measurement frameworks that help us to track outputs, outcomes, whatever we measure, right? And we always ask ourselves, for who? You know, we design often for the program. We design measurement to serve the program. And sometimes when we talk about to serve the program, sometimes we are saying to serve the donor. We collect what the donor actually wants, you know. So you walk into a community and ask, and what we want to find out is how many people are trained, you know, how many services were received, what percentage of the target was met, yeah. Do we ever ask our communities, and do donors also ever ask implementers that they work with, what does success look like to you? What does it look like to you? We are designing this program. What does success look like to you? What do you want us to measure next time we are implementing something like this? What story would you tell if you were in my position and you were in charge of reporting? It's a bit challenging, right? It's quite challenging. And they said in the morning that we're not here to just say buzzwords. I think the provocateur, right? Is that the word? Yeah, really challenged us to not just say the same things that we've been listening to here, all the time when we go to conferences, but to challenge ourselves to are you going back to your community to ask the people, how do you want us to tell the story of this program that we have implemented? And that also informs what we collect and how we tell the story. And the idea is that this problem that I'm talking about is not just a technical problem that we don't have the capacity to do it. It's a deeply ethical problem. Sometimes we want to be able to appease the donor. Sometimes we just don't care what people think, and yet they are the center of actually the program. It's a critically ethical problem, because if you ask yourself the things that I'm asking, to go to the community and ask these things, for the donor to sit down with the person that is implementing the program to say, how would you guys like to report? We've been working with a donor, and this I will say, I won't say the name. In the middle of implementation, and they said we can use examples, right? I don't have to mention the name. In the middle of implementation, they asked they sent us a template. And we said, okay, but this wasn't part of what we were supposed to report. We didn't know we were supposed to report like this. And said, well, we have had some changes. We have a new program manager who requires that we report these kind of things. And it became a very difficult thing with them for 2 whole years, right? A very big problem. Trying to agree, but we never agreed to report like this. We have this, and then said no. I heard that they had a new program manager who came from a certain organization where they report like that, and so this program manager was trying to impose that style of reporting. And guess who is the victim? Who the victim is? It's actually us, who now must be able to try and fit into their reporting standards a quarter of the time into into the program. I know he's starting to look at me. So I want to suggest something, and it's really what is part of the subject for this session. Human-centered design is really what I'm talking about. How about we center the user? And at every stage asking ourselves, who is the user? Who must be centered at this stage? Starting with the person that the person at the center, who is, for example, in this case, the communities where we work, and not the donor. How about we took time to understand the user needs? What do they want? What do they need? What matters to them? And of course, a very big part of human-centered design is the idea of iteration. Do we ever look back to actually change our measurement frameworks? You will walk into an organization 10 years after you left and you will find they use the same template. Like nothing has changed, you guys. Like nothing has changed. Nothing. Nothing at all. Over the years, we measure the same things. We use the same template. So having measurement to growth reflect what is happening currently. I want to close because the timekeeper is looking at me, so I'm going to cut short. So I want to end with a few provocations, if I may say. We must move from compliancy to solidarity, where we don't treat reporting, data collection as just performance for the donors, because we must fulfill this obligation, but rather use it as a space for collective learning, which of course comes with a lot of discomfort, contradiction, and sometimes resource needs. We must be able to resource learning. From measurement as a tool of control to measurement as a tool for care. One time someone called me and she thought I was the Michael she was talking to. She had a donor, a beneficiary organization that she was funding. She called thinking she was talking to that Michael. And the way she screamed on the phone, "Send me the report! Send me the report! If you don't send me that report, you're going to have problems with us." And she went on and on and on. And after she was done, I said, "By the way, I don't think you are I'm the Michael you wanted to talk to." But I was like, that Michael must be in a lot of trouble. And don't laugh, because you're experiencing these things every day when you let send the report. So it's like measurement is like a tool for control, right? Why is the report? Do you understand why the report has delayed? Do you have any idea? Do you understand? Has something changed within implementation that you might want to pay attention to and just wonder, why has the report delayed? Is there any challenge? You know, there's time we delayed to submit a report somewhere because the person who was responsible for that reporting was unwell. He was in hospital for about 3 weeks. When I spoke to this person, the one that was supposed to send the report, I explained. Then this we spoke about 3 times about it. This third time, she said, "Why don't you find a replacement?" Now, this person dealing with a chronic illness, right? So I fire them and then say what? I fired them because they are sick, right? So how about understand ways of going around that, because we know that we are measuring, we use measurement as a tool for care. Maybe I should stop there and just ask that in our reflection, we think about these things and the rest that my colleagues are going to talk about. And you will ask me, so what are you doing at your organization differently? I've already told you about the idea that we taking data and reports that must sound like GDP per capita to converting them into information that people can use. So we are, for example, taking the national budget, because it's a very important piece of national data, and analyzing it to fit the Ugandan public. We are taking the law. So you'll see my colleague there, if you seated with her, she will give you examples of like the constitution that we have turned into visualized format. We are working with many organizations to produce like a 1-minute animation, sometimes in a local language, about a report on, let's say, maternal health. Just giving an example. That report would have sounded like GDP per capita if no one took time to actually translate it into a language that the people that's supposed to serve actually understand. And these people sometimes are policymakers. We expect that parliamentarians know things when they're discussing certain things. But how about giving them a 1-minute animation about the subject that actually you're working on? So thank you so much for being generous with the time. Looking forward to our great conversation together with you.
Thank you so much. This table, not this table, this group, if you go back to the Canva, if you go back to that, you see this? Listening ledger? You see this? Can you see that? Now that is your group's assignment. So when we're going to go to a breakout, to the group discussions, what Michael has been sharing, that is your assignment. Okay? And the good thing is that he's still in your group, so he'll help further break down the assignment. And with that now, I'd like to welcome Mr. Hillary. And also for your group, for those who will be here, the assignment is coming after he shares. So please let's give him a round of applause as he comes.
And this is what we're going to try and look at as we reflect in our group. What metrics do we need to look at that prioritize community needs, and not only focus on funder requirements? How do we get co-created community input, right? And you can look at that table and see the difference between traditional evaluation and liberatory evaluation. I hope we'll have time to really dig deep and reflect on our own work and be able to transition from these metrics of control and compliance to metrics of shared learning, where we put community and social justice up front. Thank you.
Now, I'd like to welcome our third speaker and our last speaker. Not our last, but our close to last speaker. I'd like to welcome Steve. Steve is not part of this group, to be clear. He's part of the bottom group, and he'll be taking us through a very brief introduction also.
Thank you. I don't think we have much time left, because I would want us to spend more time in the groups and less time listening to all of this. I think we don't want to repeat a lot of what we have been discussing since morning. My name is Steve. I am the CEO and founder of MoreFund Africa, and I had a lot of stories to tell about this when I was preparing. But listening to the morning session, listening now, there is already a lot of information. Can you agree with me? Right? I don't think I need to share in detail what the plan was. But I'm going to mention a few things that we are doing at MoreFund Africa that you can relate to, because my understanding of the objective of this session is that we are now winding down. We are coming down from very high discussions to simple practical steps that we can do next week and the week after and the week after and the year after in our own individual organizations. So I would want to spend a few minutes to share insights from our experience of things that you can do, and in the discussions you can probably explore how practical is this in your own industry. The conversation of MoreFund started from the realization of how difficult it is for startups in Africa, social enterprises, non-profits to access funding. We are all talking about funding. All of us are in the process of looking for funding, whether it's from philanthropic organizations, from individuals. We are all in that space. And you know how conversations are in settings like this. They're very formal, very cordial, with big words. But when we start talking about money, it's side discussions behind the tent. So you'll see two people at the corner talking, two people having a beer in the evening. That's where the money talk is. So it's also another secret. So if you're here for the conference and you want to have conversations with people, you need to have a coffee and not here, okay? Here we will talk those things that we always talk about in conferences, but I don't want to talk about those. 80%, 85% of startups, CSOs, small businesses that are started in Africa are started out of necessity. They don't get started out of opportunity. Unlike what happens in the global north where there is an opportunity, and so you're going to start a venture or an organization which has a specific target to capitalize on that opportunity. So our young people graduate out of school, they can't find a job, start a business, right? No mentorship, no, there is talent. So there is 80%, 85% are out of necessity. And the struggle is they are unable to access the rooms, the platforms where the real talk about funding is. And they also need data. They need information that gives them an insight. How do you position yourself? And we are here as a group because we have reached to these groups of social enterprises and non-profits. Since morning, I've been thinking to myself, I keep hearing communities. Who are communities? I was struggling a bit to think about it myself. In our context as More Fund Africa, who do we define as communities? When we say we want to put communities in the center, who exactly is that? Is it the small enterprises that we support as an organization? Or is it the mothers that are benefiting from the services of the social enterprise that we are supporting? So who exactly is the community? So can you discuss that in your group? Because this I want to learn, genuinely. I want to hear from you. When we define communities, who are we talking about? Because when it comes to defining matrices, we have internal matrices. As an organization, as More Fund Africa, we have our own strategy. We don't anticipate to wind up business in the next 1 year, right? Our board will want to see us progress as an organization. That is matrices, isn't it? We are talking about data. The decisions are made upon the data that is available. But at the same time, we have impact that we are building in the communities that we still need to define. And the idea is that we have clear distinction that one doesn't interfere with the other. Our own need to grow, to have, we also have indicators. Each of you as an organization have growth indicators, don't you? That you report at the end of the year, say, we have done this, we have done this. You are looking at it inwardly and saying proudly, this is our growth indicators. That is outside of the impact indicators that you have made in the community, both positive and negative. Because you are creating negative impact as well, and you need to measure it and account for it. So good to think about in our discussions, to what extent does our own internal growth matrices interfere with the performance that we need to have in our communities? The other key insight that I also learned is we keep saying that data doesn't lie, isn't it? I think data lies a lot. Yeah? Can we agree that data lies? And you can manipulate and interpret data to tell the story or the narrative that you want. And we see this a lot. The problem that we were attempting to solve, and we're still trying to solve as More Fund Africa, is the story. When I have written a lot of proposals in my career, millions of dollars of proposals, and I have a way of formulating language that the other person on the other side understands what I'm trying to say. And it has taken time, years and skill and exposure to learn that. The groups of organizations that we support don't have that in context. So what happens is that in the process of trying to access funding, they are unable to tell their story. And you'll bear me with witness, whenever you visit, you go to the field, visit an organization, and you see what they are doing on ground, you are always shocked at what you see. Because what you see on the reports that they send you, what you read on their social media, it has nothing to do or very little to do with actually what they do. They don't know how to tell that story. So what we are trying to solve, and we are attempting to use technology, AI, is to collect these stories in the way that they are formulated by these organizations. It's a small organization on a daily basis. They are not thinking about M&E. These are complicated terms. They're just thinking, I serve a community of women because I'm working in maternal health, and my job is to sell these kits. And it's to make sure that every primary health facility has them. And I'm trying to lobby for the government to try and get payment. That's what the guy is doing. It's a small business. They don't think about storytelling, creating a rosy story for a potential investor or a donor. So we are collecting these stories in questions which are a lot more qualitative. And we want to use technology to try and help them to quantify them in a way that they can use them as stories to tell for what they do. And we have about 430 organizations that are in our support. And the idea is that we use these stories to also do a bit of risk assessment. Because the question of whether communities lie is subjective. In our experience, communities do lie. I don't know whether you have similar experiences. And in my context, in the definition of who the communities are, it says organizations that we support. Some of them, they change tacts based on which donor is at the gate. If you're talking about climate, their pitch deck is going to be climate. If you're talking about health, their pitch deck is going to be about health, and they'll have numbers to show how they are impacting their community in health. So we have seen this, and we read these proposals. We get engaged by foundations to help them revise proposals that they receive, and we also get engaged to help them build a pipeline of credible organizations. I forgot to mention that we focus on African-founded organizations, because we have a lot of Western-affiliated foundations which have African team leads. But the idea is we have indigenous organizations which can't even access the kind of network, systems, platforms that these other organizations are able to access. So there is already a marginalization in that context. So I want to add to all the things that you have had on these 4 things. One is about context. When we are discussing indicators, that it's good that we have this distinction between internal indices that we monitor or track, because most likely you're going to be doing this around the same way, same format, discussing it in the same teams. What do you define internally as growth? There is a proposition that we received a while ago. We have a product that we are designing that I'll talk about later, and someone approached us and said, would you be interested in selling this? So we are a non-profit. We are not, you can't acquire us. But there is already an opportunity. The only way we can be able to make a decision as an organization is if we look at our internal matrices of growth. The other thing is a question. I see in the corporate space a lot of mergers and acquisition. I don't know who is from the corporate space here, but you know how mergers work, isn't it? 2 different organizations who are in the same space, they find value and they come together and they say, why don't we work together? Why don't we merge? And they go through a legal process and they merge. I haven't seen 2 NGOs merging, but if there is, please let me know in Africa. Why don't we have that? Why don't we have CSOs coming together and say, you are in the same space as us. We are competing for the same resources. We are serving the same communities. Why don't we come together and do it in the same way? And this has to work, especially if we have to unlock African philanthropy. Because you have funders in Africa who are interested in investing, but they are wondering, who do we leave our wealth to? To you? I'm just Steve. I'm just a guy from Nairobi. To what extent can a wealthy Zimbabwean commit resources and say, I am trusting you to steward these resources for social impact in Africa, and I'm going to leave my endowment of $100 million. So how can I be trusted? It is only possible if there is a conglomerate of organizations that give some sense of trust and accountability, which is cutting across. So in your discussions, think about this. The other thing is about government. We all agree that government is the monster that we don't want to deal with, but we don't have a choice. If we engage with government at the level in which they want to be engaged, we are able to have conversations that are meaningful for our indicators, so that we don't dump reports and say, this is what we have learned. This is the financing gap in the healthcare infrastructure, and this is what you need to do. They will not take that up. And the other thing, the last one, is about being realistic. It's good to be realistic about our capabilities as organizations. And people in our sector are known to talk big words. In meetings, even in family gatherings, you can always tell someone who works for an NGO. Always talking big words, big. Let's try to come back to being simple, being realistic, that I can do this in doing this. Thank you so much.
Now divide them. So I can see we are about 6 groups. So I have group 1 here, group 2 here, group 3, group 4, group 5, and I believe that is going to be group 6. Okay? Now that we are clear on everything, this is the guiding principles for all the groups. And the reason I'm now leaving this on, this is not going to leave, this is going to stay here, is that, for example, if we were to take data for as healing, storytelling, we are meant to discuss how do we use data to help our work, because it's no longer anyone else's work. Our work heal, improve, or connect more deeply with its purpose. Yeah? So what is that we need to put in our healing circle that is in the Canva template that will enhance this better? For the measurement compass, for example, the measurement compass is only covering 3 aspects. It's covering depth, dignity, and direction. So are we capturing meaningful change? Are we respectful in how we capture? And are we learning or just reporting? So we are having those discussions around the measurement compass. And again, this is not going to go, this is going to stay over here. When it comes to red pen, blue pen, it is asking, with red, what harmful or extractive indicators have we been reporting? And even further, what are we pushing? In the beginning of the day, we had colonizing, right? So what are we purporting as colonizers, and what should we remove, right? And when it comes to the colonizing the dashboard, is simply what should we do to change it? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? And what should be retained? So I believe this is clear. Yes? All right, so with that we have 20 minutes. Okay. So we have 20 minutes to go on, and then after that we'll do a very brief consolidation of the space. Please do not work on someone else's space. Just stick to your lane.
was a woman for that coalition. So when the coalition was electing a leader, of course, they didn't consider that they will be serving the Wajir county that's male dominated, right? So when they were trying to move forward with the implementation, it wasn't working, and they were wondering what's going on. So the benefit of consulting with community and discussing with other networks, they learned that the issue is actually that they're serving a predominantly male community while the leader of the coalition is a woman. Yeah, it's sad, but it's the reality, right? So they decided, instead of ceding the place completely to a male, why don't they have like co-leadership? So they'll have a female and a male, so that they appease to the desire of the county, but also stick to their own vision and their own directive as a coalition. So they opted for a co-leadership. They had a woman and a man, and that helped the people in the community they were serving in the Wajir County specifically be more accepting of what the coalition was trying to achieve and contribute, and they didn't have to also forsake the woman leader as well from the coalition. So this is a story that, one, shows improvement in terms of adjusting to the need that shows on the ground. Two, healing in the sense that they didn't really have to completely forsake the woman leadership because of serving a predominantly male environment. So it's healing in a sense that they try to find something that merges the two and gives out the best result for the community while also sticking to the vision of the coalition. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So group 2, red pen, blue pen.
Requested to reach out to a given number of community. They say in their template they need 1,000 people, regardless other condition you will be working in, if you will have that community on time or not. So this, we think, it should not be always there. They should first of all work with us and see what is possible, what we can reach, and then we intervene accordingly. We have also cultural intensive and incentive indicators. Sometimes we have a conflict between funders and community because a funder has a given rules to follow, and the community, based on the cultural belief, things like that, they are not easy to change and migrate to the requirement of the funder. And sometimes it creates a conflict between the implementer, the beneficiary, and the funder. So it's better to have a common consideration, especially to consider that cultural conditions, and then move forward with what the beneficiary is ready to acquire and accept. We have another issue of feedback. We have a template for reporting to our funders, but when the report is there, we don't have a feedback. We fill that template, we fill the information they need, we submit, but they don't come back to us to say, considering this and this, next time it should be better to do this and this in order to upgrade our performance or to have a positive impact more than last time. So we recommend to have also a way of reverse communication, the time the template is submitted, then after analysis we should have a feedback from them. Then this feedback should help us to go back again to our beneficiaries and improve the way we are working and improve the result. Yeah, I think I at the same time I was saying about red and blue at the same time, so you are seeing it's like I did everything in allocated time. Thank you.
We listening to them some way to dialogue so we can change some of these things. Another missing voice that was highlighted is institutions of higher learning, like universities. I guess we can provide like human capacity for research and all of that. Are we aware of what students are learning or researching on? Can it be something that we can collaborate so that, students are aware of societal issues that we're facing, answers to questions that we have, and it can be part of a research in a certain higher institution of learning? There's also the private sector. Someone said that we're not even thinking about them. What are they doing? Is there something that they are doing that may be clashing with the work that we're trying to do in our organization, and it's probably affecting the way our beneficiaries or communities are responding to us, because it's clashing with private sector where they are making their money? So maybe we should listen more to how that sector is working and the things they're doing. And finally, small scale farmers. For a particular organization that serves these farmers, have they sat down in the room with these farmers to find out, okay, what is it, how you using our product, is it working well for you, what can be improved, rather than assuming that, because we're getting, they're selling what they have from the farm and everything is okay. Maybe we should have a roundtable discussion with these farmers. Thank you.
All right. So from here we go to group 4, and group 4 was on
Zia from Nairobi, Kenya. And our group focused on decolonizing the dashboard. We touched on reporting and a little bit on design. And we said what stays is the structure of short outputs with long-term outcomes should remain. This is the theory of change model. And then we also said financial accountability to both the donors and the communities that we serve should also remain. And then what goes, we said complex reporting should go. Why this is so is because we need to localize the reporting approaches. So consider context while reporting. And then short-termism of funding should go. This is because it hinders sustainability of projects and programs. And then the top-down design with a bottom-up reporting should go. We felt like design should involve communities and reporting should be both ways, both the implementers and also the donors. And then the mode of funding for programs should go, the current one. We'd like to see a lot more programs diversify the way they do business, including either a social enterprise angle to the program. And then in terms of new unexplored fields, we said we need to consult with communities a lot more in the design process, just to ensure ownership of the implementation of the projects. And then we said we need to tier, and we've put community in quotes because we're still defining that term. So we need to tier community metrics and report them as separate metrics. So you'd find an organization that has two, say, the businesses, the community, the individuals that you serve, and the individuals that are served by the businesses that you serve, for example, if you're enabling SMEs and things like that. So we need to tier that and report them as separate metrics. And then we need to include storytelling a lot more as an impact metrics. These will be beneficial, especially to ecosystem builders and weavers when they're reporting on the impact that they've had in the programs that they are implementing. Thank you.
All right, group 5, last but not least. And after this, we are nearly there. So the last batches that we require, we're nearly there. There's something left.
My name is Lucy from Good Kenyan Foundation. And our task was around measurement compass and looking at dignity, depth, direction, and dialogue. The approach we took as a group was to share what each was doing in their projects, how they were measuring, what was their measuring compass around the 4 critical areas. So I'll share quickly around some organizations that were brave enough to share. Malkia said their programs are centered, a girl-centered program, and they really prioritize real needs. And it gives them direction, because the feedback they get is implemented as it is. They don't do interpretation, or they don't speak for the girls. For APR, data is collected at multiple decentralized levels, and that allows different levels to reflect differently. And also from that data, it gives them direction on how to, because they're in health and around tropical diseases. So it does help them to educate, inform, and see what they need to change. There's a very interesting and honest sharing from APN where they says most of their measurement is really donor driven, and the projects have really been pre-designed or written. So what they do is that they create theory of change around that and then educate the communities to do that. In terms of dignity, one of the things that these organizations are doing is respecting data privacy, like in the case of JHI in Rwanda, how they do their focus group and how they undertake the information, how they extract information. Ufanisi always seeks consent, avoid publishing the participant on social media, and only use photos for private reporting. For APR, I really liked what they said, whereby they use unique identifiers instead of names. So you're not able to sort of know whose data that was, and someone can genuinely share without feeling like this will be used against them. There was a challenge from EML, which was that who really benefits from this data and why are we collecting it should be the leading factors that let us decide how to collect the data and what to do with the data. And also, why did we form our organizations? On dialogue, there was, of course, first doing focus groups, having real meaningful conversation. Truly, we were warned around inflated numbers or using donor language that shift the original meaning of what you're doing, and then encourage to ongoing reflection and honesty within the teams. Thank you.
So, I told you, it's one thing to, in the beginning, start off with just identifying different problems, fragmentations and the likes, right? But now actually coming together to actually see what would we want to see, and then the next question becomes how, right? But before we go to the how, I want to introduce us in a very I was with group 3 for a moment, the word radical. I want to introduce all of you radically. So I kindly request we go outside for just a minute. Everything will be safe here. We're just going to form one line, and there are certain instructions that we're going to listen to. So please, you can, if you feel you want to carry your bag, but please carry your phone. Your bags are safe on the chair that you are in, and this is how we're going to end. So, the first question, and I believe you can hear me. If the statement I'm going to read is agreeable to you, you move forward one step. If it's not, you move back a step. All right. Take one step forward. If the communities you serve helped choose at least one indicator you reported last year. Okay. Yes. Let me repeat the question. So because this one, the instruction was to move forward, right? So if you didn't, you stay in that line, right? So the question is, take one step forward if the communities you serve helped choose at least one indicator that you reported. So if the answer is yes, yes? Okay, good. Question 2. Take a step forward if your organization shares raw or summarized impact data with the community members first before the donor. You share your raw data first before you share to the community. Okay. All right. It is yes or no? All right. Mike. Oh, no. There's no independence. It's either you share first with the community or not. All right. Next. Does the organization have 50% or greater as its M&D budget? Step forward. If your organization's M&D budget is 50% and above, step forward. All right. Second last question. Take a step forward. If your team, because we are leaders of teams, has dropped or radically redesigned an indicator or their theory of change in the last 1 year. First of all, clap for yourselves. That is improvement. That is lovely. All right. Yes, 1 year. Yes. All right. Now this one is a tough one. I will be honest. In your organizations, in the last evaluation report that you did any of your community members co-author that report? And it was documented that they co-authored that report. Co-authored. Co-authored is, like how, for example, in our thesis you said prepared by, reviewed by, and approved by, is a community member who is not a staff in that process. Yes, no, maybe? I will take a maybe. If there's a maybe, I will take it for this round. Alumina is not a community member. All right. And last but not least, take a step forward if your impact framework tracks change in policy, norms, or power beyond your organization. All right. Today we started saying that this session is a co-creation session, right? Yes. And that's why I said we are radically going to know each other. Now that is how, Dr. I please request you to come to Uganda and learn the beautiful works that are happening here. Yes. But now, for everyone who has either stayed behind, taken a step forward, a step back, or not moved at all, which is still fine, there is something to learn here. There is something to learn about the questions that were just asked. Today in the evening we say that we're doing what? Rethinking impact, right? I hope those 7 questions have actually made you see where are we still mark timing, where have we stepped back, and what we should do to move forward. Everything that we have put up there cannot move without these practical examples in your mind, right? And with that, I'd like you guys to clap for all of you. No, this is for yourself. Clap for yourself. It should come from your, not as you say your thorax, but I would say your heart.